Welcome to the High Pressure Podcast with me, George Rotterman.
And me, Marie Williams. Brought to you by Reliably Ratterman.
Bringing you industry news and trends.
Plus, insightful conversations with industry leaders.
Let's get to today's show. Hey, Marie, it is so great to be on the next High Pressure Podcast with you. I've been missing not being together here, having our co-hosting. So looking forward to our conversation today. And my understanding today, it's going to have something to do with the gas.
It absolutely is. I know. So great to have you back as our lead host. And I'll sit here as your co-host, keeping you in line so you don't get too crazy. But we're going to be talking to Sunny Punj all about how distributors can play a role in hydrogen and the amazing opportunities that his company is providing for distributors as well in the hydrogen market.
My gosh, I got to tell you what, it is such an exciting time. I mean, when you look at the horizon, what could happen and what could be, when you look at what's going on with hydrogen and be able to produce hydrogen and all the different effects that that's happening and the CO2 sequestering and things that all tie in together and clean water from the, new technologies are coming about to make hydrogen. It is just an amazing time to be a gas distributor. The opportunities, one market after another.
It is. And I know my son loves to look at all the colors of hydrogen. So it's pretty much the whole rainbow there. So
yeah,
we'll get into those details as well. But yeah, this is going to be a great episode and I hope brings a lot of value to distributors around the country. We are here with Sunny Punj of CGI Gases, and we are going to be talking about hydrogen today and how distributors can play a part in the hydrogen market, or at least explore if it's something of interest to you. So welcome to the High Pressure Podcast, Sunny.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. So Sunny, what is driving all of the talk, all the investments around hydrogen?
Well, there's, hydrogen, believe it or not, has been around as a fuel source as well as a critical component of many processes. As an example, gaseous hydrogen is used to cool generators in a power plant. So power companies for, I'm going to say maybe last 50 years have been using hydrogen. And so there's many applications like that. And it's just there's been a renewed focus on this product, specifically because of the mobility market and this whole push globally for a transition to a cleaner fuel source. And hydrogen's surely being looked upon as a potential clean source. So.
Excellent. And that's found in markets like I'll let you speak to that. What markets are looking at bringing on hydrogen as an alternative?
So, I mean, it's across, like, I would kind of put that in two categories. There's more sort of the business, B2B type applications or industrial applications. So, for example, in the production of LEDs, any kind of a reduction process, powdered metals. These are all industries that have traditionally had use for hydrogen. And, it's one that as those industries are growing, the demand for the industrial hydrogen is growing with that. But then there's sort of this whole, not relatively new segment because it's been around, but it's been growing, are things like use of hydrogen fuel cell cars in, replacing sort of propane forklifts in, mega like Amazon and Walmart type places where they're being replaced. The forklifts are being replaced by hydrogen powered. So hydrogen being considered, and then if you open up any magazine or internet, you'll see they're always coming up with there's going to be hydrogen powered planes and hydrogen powered ships and so on. Hydrogen as a fuel source at home. So there's this huge kind of a consumer driven demand that is also driving. So there's sort of both of these factors. And then, like I said, with all these initiatives that are being, released globally to move to, a net zero carbon, net negative carbon, that's also driving the use for hydrogen.
Sunny, you just touched on something there. For for a good period of time, it was liquid natural gas or CNG, compressed natural gas. That was the talk, right? That was the cocktail party talk. Everybody's talking about that and the investments that were happening in that. The shift to go to hydrogen. What's driving that the most? Is it the footprint? Is it the carbon footprint?
It really is. It really is. I mean, hydrogen does tend to be a fairly efficient fuel source, but I think a lot of it is being driven by that. Power companies are looking at different ways to blend hydrogen into natural gas. So, natural gas is used to produce power, and they're looking at injecting different percentages of hydrogen into that to produce power that would be considered renewable power. So, things like the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, which was introduced about 2 years back
Yeah.
by Manchin's office, Senator Manchin's office, which is further promoting and incentivizing producers to use hydrogen or do things that are net zero carbon, net negative carbon, reduce the carbon emissions, and they're offering different types of incentives to be able to do that.
Yeah. So here's my big question. You talk to gas distributors, independent gas distributors particularly, and normally this area of hydrogen is considered the big boys zone, right? All the big guys, the Air Liquides, the Praxairs, the Air Gases, the Air Products, all those folks play in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of looked like, well, that's what happens. It's over there where it happens. It's not really an independent gas distributor that's going to be participating in this market. And I think that's the big question. When you first look at it, you think, well, that might be the way it's going to go. But it looks like that is not the case. It looks like there's an amazing amount of opportunity as independent gas distributors to be in this segment and looking for opportunity. Maybe you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. I mean, there sort of exists this perception, which is fast changing, that hydrogen is sort of kind of the big boys, the majors space, and that I'm going to kind of take a step back and talk a little bit about kind of how we got into hydrogen, and we're kind of seeing some of the similar things happening again. CGI Gases were 75-year-old company. And we were heavy providers of industrial gases in the Rust Belt to the steel mills. So when a lot of the steel mills started to go out of business, when that transition was happening, our business transitioned more to power companies and different chemical industries and powder metals. And what we saw at the time was one of the major products that they were using was gaseous hydrogen, which, like you mentioned, had always sort of been not been the domain of the regional distributors. So that's when, in '84, we put our first gaseous hydrogen facility, and then subsequently we built other hydrogen facilities as well, and to really start to look at, okay, how do we become quote unquote independent in the production of hydrogen? And there's sort of a similar wave that's happening now because of all these applications and all these new uses of hydrogen, gaseous hydrogen that are coming up. The molecules are a little constrained. There's not enough molecules in the market, but there's a greater demand. So a lot of the distributors are seeing that, and they're seeing that, hey, customers that previously were, not asking them about hydrogen are asking about hydrogen, or because, hydrogen's just another product in the portfolio, right? So they're getting calls from companies that they may not have gotten before saying, hey, can you supply us bulk gaseous hydrogen, just because that demand is increasing. So
yeah, that's exciting. So you are a model of exactly what can happen as an independent gas distributor.
We believe so. We believe so. If I look at the supply in the marketplace, based on our experience, there's liquid is certainly there, and liquid is a good method for transportation, because most applications most, if not all applications, other than NASA, they use gaseous hydrogen. So liquid is used as a mode of transportation. So that creates a lot of kind of these gaps in the marketplace where, sort of having some sort of a strategic source for gaseous hydrogen would make sense. And that's kind of been our strategy. What we've been focused on in the last few years is to kind of create this decentralized mesh network of strategic sources of gaseous hydrogen and be able to support the distributors. And
I really wanted to ask you about that because there is a shortage of hydrogen around the country. So a cryogenic transport, how many tons of hydrogen can you put on a cryogenic transport trailer?
So right now, typically the size of what we call a tube trailer, these are steel tube trailers, and they store the hydrogen at a pressure of somewhere between 2,400 to about 3,000 psi. And us in the gaseous hydrogen world, we like to think more in standard cubic feet.
Yep.
We can sort of do a conversion, but a tube trailer holds about 130,000 standard cubic feet of hydrogen. Now, over the last few years, you're starting to see the entry of composite trailers. These are lighter trailers, and they have the ability to have hydrogen stored at a higher pressure. So, a composite trailer can store up to 3 times what a steel tube trailer can carry.
So when we're looking at transporting, that's really the big thing right now, being able to find the hydrogen and how to get it to where you want to get it to. That's what the mesh network you're talking about is looking to achieve.
Yes, absolutely. And we believe that these gaseous sources can very well coexist and will coexist. And in the model that we are looking at, it is coexisting with the liquid supply. So we would work hand in hand with the IGCs, with the big guys, where we can be a strategic supply advantage in a market, as well as with the distributors, because we are enabling them to have hydrogen at a competitive price, which they may not have had access to before. And sort of the two things that most folks really challenged with in the hydrogen area, especially the distributors. One is certainly getting the hydrogen at a competitive price, and second is reliability of supply.
Right. So if you're a gas distributor and you're saying, I want to look at this market, what would be your first step? You say, okay, I'm not doing a lot in hydrogen. I do a lot with a lot in liquid nitrogen or argon and oxygen. Not doing much in hydrogen. What would be your recommended first couple bullet point steps for that distributor to look at?
Well, what I would say is that I think the distributors over the years have done a great job of having a very strong regional presence. They have customers that trust them. They have had generations, years of delivering to these customers, and so there's probably opportunities that are coming up and have come up in their regions where they have a great foothold with their salespeople and relationships that they are missing. So their salespeople need to start looking at, well, who are the companies that are buying gaseous hydrogen, and it could be someone that's using it as a primary as a primary supply, but also a lot of customers. What we're seeing in the marketplace are interested in some sort of a backup supply of gaseous hydrogen, backup to whatever their existing method may be of getting that hydrogen, self-generation or liquid supply. And they're looking at it and saying, hey, it would be nice to have a backup supply in case my liquid supply goes down, or my self-generation method, the electrolyzer or whatever, mechanical equipment goes down. So the salespeople need to be looking for ferreting out these kinds of opportunities that are in the marketplace right now.
Yeah. But now when we get to the energy market, that's the reason I'm asking this question, that's a big bridge, right? You've been traditionally calling and selling to people doing manufacturing, doing semiconductor. And now we got this market that is going to be selling to a market that's basically filling buses or filling cars with liquid hydrogen, all the different mobile fill locations, all these things are happening. How would you suggest somebody in their area where would they reach out to? What would they look at to go find those opportunities? Because they might not even be there yet, right? They're emerging.
Right. So there's a lot of regional associations that are starting to come up. I was just at the last week. I was at the Ohio Fuel Cell Symposium, and these are great conferences, opportunities where you're seeing that a lot of the folks that are looking at these mobility or these new markets that are coming up, and they're looking to service that market. They could be equipment providers, they could be technology providers, and so as a gaseous provider, that's a very important role. So sort of becoming more active in those kinds of circles would be helpful. We're helping out distributors by quote unquote training their salespeople. What markets they should be going into, what kind of questions they should be asking. And like I said, it's not just completely just an education issue, because there are distributors that are very well aware of opportunities and are probably servicing them, but then they are up against those two issues. Are they competitive enough? Is the source reliable enough? So that is what we're trying to address by putting up this sort of strategic sources and be a provider.
Yeah.
So,
Marie, I know I'm just a little bit older than you, and Sunny, I might be a little bit older than you, but I will tell you, what an exciting time right now is, and what an exciting time the future is, because this stuff is not what might be going to happen. It's happening, right? It's real. It's here right now, and all the different things spawning from it, especially the newer developments, electrolyzers, to be able to get hydrogen converted and clean water and be able to sequester CO2 and all the different technologies that are happening. They're really there. And they might be at the forefront and not maybe in full production yet, but they're there. And so this is an exciting time, especially for a gas distributor where there's so many new opportunities. You got to find them, but there's so many new opportunities. Exciting time. And I think it was really great to have you on here today, Sunny, because we're focusing on the fact that it can be done. You're an independent gas distributor, and what you're doing and how you're doing it, and creating a mesh for being able to have the sourcing. So I believe you're putting in a new plant. Is that correct? You're building a plant?
That is correct. We actually have multiple plants that are going in. The big one that we have is in Ohio. It's about 30 miles outside of Akron in a place called Massillon. And we're doing that in partnership with a company called Babcock's and Wilcox. I can certainly talk a little bit about that if you'd like.
Yeah,
I would
would
love
you?
that.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So Babcock's and Wilcox is a legacy company that has produced boilers. They're about 150 plus year old company. And over the last 50, 60 years, they have transitioned into being more of an energy technology provider. And they have a patented technology called Bright Loop, which is a chemical looping system. And again, chemical looping has existed. So this is not some new cool way of producing hydrogen that some scientists came up in their lab a year back. And this is a process that's very stable, very reliable, has existed for 50 plus years. It is being repurposed to produce clean hydrogen and biogenic CO2. And this is something that has been tested at different pilot, sub-pilot levels for the last 25 years. So in partnership with them, this is the first commercially scaled plant that's going in, and it's going to produce about 3 to 5 tons per day of hydrogen. So that's a pretty sizable plant if you look at it. About a ton is about, I think it's about
Yeah,
like
500,000 cubic feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a plant that's making 2.5 million cubic feet a day of hydrogen.
That is correct. And the exciting part is the hydrogen produced is going to be clean hydrogen. So it's not going to be your gray hydrogen. It's a hydrogen that would be considered clean. It would be considered sort of at the same level as what people define as green. And also, it's going to be a big hurdle with green hydrogen has traditionally been the cost of it, the cost to produce it. So the hydrogen that we're going to produce is going to be competitive with the current methods of producing hydrogen. So you'll have clean hydrogen. It's going to be cost competitive, And it's a 24/7 process, very few moving parts. And it's a process that, like I mentioned, has been tested over time. So it's highly reliable. And so we're pretty excited about it. It's going to be fuel cell grade, high pressure.
So, Sonny, I've got a question for you because I got to tell you, we got these colors going. I got my Crayolas out and all these different colors we have, right? We got gray, we got blue, we got green. Could you just maybe say this in a way that's really clear and concise what the difference is between the colors?
Sure, sure. And it's interesting. I talked about this recently in Argentina at IOMA as well. So the energy market has classified hydrogen into different color bands, and these color bands are based on two things. One, the feedstock of the hydrogen that is being produced. What's the feedstock? Is it coal? Is it solar? Is it hydropower? And then the second is the method of production. How is that hydrogen being extracted? And consequently, what people are interested in is how much carbon is that generating, or is it not generating any carbon? So based on that, they have colors. I think the colors are up to like 12 colors now.
Yeah.
Everything from green and blue to turquoise to brown to white. And it starts to get pretty confusing. But I think so. So a lot of the customers, what we're finding, are sort of kind of moving away from the colors and saying, okay, what is the carbon intensity score?
Okay,
which is really what people want to understand is that, okay, so if you produce a kilogram of hydrogen, well, how much carbon dioxide are you producing? And so that CI score makes it a little more clear.
and so let's just talk about that score. So we're going to look at that score. What is considered to be an amazing score where you're like, okay, this is truly green hydrogen? What would be that carbon score?
So anything under 0.45 is considered a good CI score. So the IRA, I talked about that. So they are issuing, people can qualify for a credit of up to $3 per kilogram based on their production of hydrogen and their feedstock. And you qualify for the maximum credit if you fall within 0 to 0.45 per kilogram range.
Okay.
So, the DOE defines that as sort of the best range. So, for example, our plant in Massillon, that's going to be under 0.45.
Okay.
So it would be at the same level as a green hydrogen production.
So if you're a producer, you put in a plant to produce, which is something an independent gas distributor could do. They could build a plant and do
Sure.
that. If they build it such that they're under 0.45, there's not just the fact they have hydrogen, but there's also some other tax credits that gives them possibly some advantage in the price in the market if they are able to produce it below that, right? There's a rebate. We call that a rebate or just a credit?
Yeah, it's a tax credit that you get. Yeah, it's really exciting, and also what's happening is there's like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of talk about green hydrogen, and any customer that I go into, they're talking about green hydrogen. They're interested in green hydrogen,
Yeah.
and they have some sort of an ESG initiative where they want to spend on green hydrogen, but at the end of the day, hydrogen is considered a commodity. So the moment they sort of look at the price of what a green hydrogen would cost, it's sort of, they're like, well, we'll stick with what we have. So really what the market is looking for is cleaner hydrogen. And getting plants like the one that I mentioned in Massillon will sort of bridge that gap between producing that cleaner hydrogen at a much more competitive price so that the customers can start to buy that. And that's what we're super excited about. And, just I kind of want to talk a little bit about, often a question that I get asked is, well, what is the difference between when you say clean hydrogen and green hydrogen and blue? Like, what is the difference? So green obviously is the cleanest form of hydrogen. And green hydrogen, there is no carbon emission. So if for example, you put a electrolysis plant, but the power and electrolysis plants use a lot of power. But if the power that is coming into it is from a gas-fired powered plant or a coal-fired powered plant, the hydrogen produced would not be considered green. It would still qualify, may have a different level of clean that it would qualify for, but it wouldn't be considered green. So to produce green hydrogen, your power source also has to be produced by a cleaner source like a hydropower or something like that. So which makes it extremely difficult to be able to produce green hydrogen and produce it cost competitively.
Yeah, that would. You'd have to have geothermal or some type of wind or solar or some other way in which you're getting the power. Would that work if you had solar? Because I was also the conversation about what it takes to make solar panels. Does it still classify if you use solar to create power?
Yeah, and actually they call it like you have green hydrogen, they call it yellow hydrogen. So
Okay.
if hydrogen is produced from electrolysis, but the power comes from solar, they call it yellow hydrogen.
Right.
So,
and I'm imagining the CI score for that would not be low enough to get the credit because it's not truly at the point of green.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of levers here that are going to be making decisions on how things happen based on the different elements of the CI or possibly where the power is going to come from, maybe where you locate a plant. So a lot of elements in there. That's pretty interesting. And that also means if somebody's in an area with lots of power that's green, if you happen to be near Niagara Falls, maybe you can make a lot of hydrogen that's considered all green.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of two challenges in the marketplace that we're trying to address with getting these different sources up. And the Massillon plant is obviously that's the one that we're more excited about because it's a big facility. It's the first time that you're going to have clean hydrogen that we believe will be cost competitive. It's at the same level as green.
Yeah.
But we have other sources coming up. But there's two issues. One is this whole reliability of supply and putting up different strategic sources so that as the demand for hydrogen goes up, both on the mobility and the consumer side, but also on the industrial side, that we are able to put enough molecules close enough to the distributors. And then the second is to try and produce clean hydrogen at a cost competitive in a cost competitive manner, so that there's more penetration of the cleaner molecules into the marketplace.
Sunny, when you talk about the question, having the right questions to explore, new opportunity for distributors, you don't have to share all of them, but what are some of those questions that salespeople can go in and ask accounts?
So there's existing customers that are probably that they have been servicing, and they are probably using hydrogen. Like it could be like a power company where you may have a distributor that is servicing them with other bulk gases or cylinders and so on, and they're most likely using hydrogen. And so going in and asking the question about what their usage are, so on and so on. So there's opportunities in existing within the existing customers, and then really just being educated on what are these other applications that are coming up. And that's where I think a lot of these associations and these conferences are great. You have different bus companies that are doing this. You've got warehouses, and you've got all these companies that are experimenting with different fuel cells that are utilizing hydrogen. So these are all customers that exist in their region. And like I said, a lot of times these distributors may be aware of them, but they're not able to go in because they don't have a reliable supply, or they may not be competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have an example you can share of a gas distributor that has transitioned more heavily into the hydrogen market?
I mean, there's multiple distributors. I don't know if I'm going to be naming them, but we work with some distributors in the Midwest market that we have seen that because of having a reliable supply from us, that we've seen that their businesses has grown, and they're starting to expand into newer customers and so on. So we can just see that because now they had a competitive and a reliable supply that is close enough that their penetration in their marketplace is increasing.
That's amazing. So it's possible. It's not just
Well,
a pie in the sky.
No, absolutely. It's very much so.
Yeah. And Sunny, the plant you're putting in, my understanding is that you have a byproduct of CO2, but you're not going to be utilizing CO2. You're going to sequester that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. So the plant that we have in Ohio, and we actually did a press release about 2 years back, or actually no, last year, that we're going to do a similar plant, but at a larger scale in Louisiana. So this is sort of a smaller scale of that same utilizing the same B&W technology in partnership with Babcock's. So there, because of the scale, we would be able to look at the CO2 that is being produced and competitively convert that. You take that CO2, clean it to beverage grade, and be able to liquefy it and still be competitive in the marketplace. In Ohio, we try to look at it, and given the volume of CO2 that would be produced, it would not be competitive for us to do that. So we're looking to sequester that CO2 and take that credit.
Yeah. And what will be your per day amount of CO2 that you'll be sequestering?
So right now, I mean, the numbers keep changing, so don't hold me on those numbers, but we were looking at somewhere around 20 tons per day.
Okay. So that's a pretty significant amount of CO2, and you're going to be getting the tax credit for that CO2 by sequestering it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And that CO2, your issue is cleaning up the CO2 so it could be utilized. Is that the main issue?
Yeah, to clean it up and still be competitive in the marketplace. At that scale, it wasn't making sense. Now, when we would look in Louisiana and we would look at that scale, it would make sense.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's also a growing demand, just like you have the clean hydrogen, the green hydrogen, you have biogenic CO2. So right now, that market hasn't really taken off. So there really isn't a premium in the marketplace for the production and purchase of biogenic CO2. But we believe that is coming, so that would also sort of help the cause.
And biogenic, when you say biogenic, would you just touch on when you're talking about biogenic, how that CO2, what that would be coming from?
So biogenic CO2, it just means that the CO2 is produced from a source, from a greener source. So it could be a CO2 that's coming from renewable natural gas, process or from biomass. So the production of that CO2 is coming from a more cleaner source, fuel source.
Yeah. One of the things that's so wonderful about the gas industry and the independent gas distributors and the majors is that it touches so many different areas of the world and so many different markets, and it always stays exciting. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Just the conversation we've had today between CO2 and what you can do with hydrogen and LNG and all the different aspects of these things, just the concepts of blending things to have, a different outcome in what we're trying to do with carbon output. So I think that, I hear what this is going on. I can just think of 10 different things as a gas distributor you could be out there doing. So it's not the same old, right? There's no Groundhog Day. It's the next new thing you can do. So I can't tell you how much, Sunny, I've appreciated you coming on the High Pressure Podcast. I learned an awful lot, and I really enjoyed the excitement of where this world is going and what we can do as gas distributors.
Yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. I appreciate this opportunity, and we are trying to, and I encourage any of the distributors that are sort of looking at this market, looking at hydrogen, and sort of scratching their head and saying, hey, how do I participate in this? We're very happy to. We've got people that have been doing hydrogen for 40 years, both on the technology side as well as sales side. So we're happy to quote unquote train their people, kind of point them in the right direction. And like I said, we're trying to get multiple sources through Ohio, North Carolina, West Virginia, so on, and really be able to enable them. So not only be able to bring that education, be able to direct them in the right places, but also enable them with having competitive and reliable supply of gaseous hydrogen for them.
Yeah.
So we're super excited, and I think you guys are doing a great job of kind of getting that word out there. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Marie had a brilliant idea to have you on today. I think it's fantastic we're having this opportunity today. So thank you again so much.
Well, no, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for watching. Stay up to date with the latest news in the gas and welding industry by clicking on the subscribe button.
And check out one of our other videos to learn more. Find out more about Reliably Ratterman at rmiorder.com.